workers from using other people's phones or desks or offices or other work tools or equipment. And then regular housekeeping, including routine cleaning and disinfecting of surfaces. Okay, look at EPA approved cleaning fluids. And then finally, we look at personal protective equipment. Do they have enough? Is it adequate? Is it usable? Is it maintainable, disposable, and have people been trained on it? These are all the elements that we do with all the other things we do as safety professionals. We just have to implement it in the case of the COVID-19 virus.
Wow. That was really great, Eric. Thank you so much. Now we've learned to implement all our risk management and the hierarchy of risk controls to pandemics. That was awesome, Eric. Thank you so much. Now you have questions already, Eric, which we'll also share at the end of the session. A lot of people are putting their questions in the Q&A session. So I'll move on to Dapo Omolade. Here, Dapo will be telling us on how organizations and safety professionals can manage post-pandemic occupational health and safety risks in West African workplaces. We understand that due to the peculiarity of the West African region, where all our countries and our workplaces are domiciled in countries which are developing, we know that our risk management technology or technique has to be localized to West Africa. So today we'll have Dapo tell us better manage those risks. Over to you, Dapo. You need to unmute.
Okay, all right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, professionals, and thank you so much for this opportunity once again. Basically managing how can we manage the post-pandemic health and safety challenges by organizations and also individuals. One of the things that came to my mind quickly when I looked at this topic is what exactly would be our going back after this post-pandemic, season. I think our goal would be, our fundamental goal, and that's for organizations and even employees, would be to ensure that all the long-term health and social impact of this pandemic can be addressed. That means we need to restore back normal health and safety, social and economic functions. This goal can only be achieved through some key strategic initiatives, especially in our own part of the world, West Africa. And as Eric said, which is a very good part of what I want to say on the risk assessment, all professionals generally know that our best tool is risk assessment when we need to prevent any incident happening. And this COVID definitely is already something that we can term as a big incident to the whole world, which somehow was not well prepared for. But at this stage, I think risk assessment is our own best way. So we need to get back as employers and employees immediately to look at our risk assessment again and review. Every professional here, I'm sure, have risk assessment of your workplace and what you do regularly to prevent incidents. So we have a new introduction into the system right now. People are going to come back after this to work. So employers need to lead in these risk assessment processes. They need to empower the OSH professionals to be able to carry out the risk assessment. And of course, the employees must be willing to follow through what has been designed as a reviewed risk assessment for post-pandemic. Because we have to go back to work, economic life have to return, things have to go back to what we consider normal, which of course is abnormal now, but things have to go back to where we can conveniently work the way we used to work before we think, but we may not be able to do that. So we all have something to do, and the risk assessments we need to be done quickly. Now I've put together as a basic strategy. Our strategy for post-pandemic period would be first and foremost a very robust planning and coordination system for how people are going to work right now. There must be a system in place for monitoring and evaluation in in our workplaces. That means the employer must have something to ensure that you can monitor. And monitoring now means I'm going to be coming, this disease could be asymptomatic, which means you may not even know. So how do you monitor that the workers that are returning back to work after this pandemic are not infectious and they cannot infect the whole organization? We have to put system in place as we have done before now and use the basic parameters that WHO has given to us on how to ensure this. We need to make sure that we can reduce reinfection and spread of this disease because it's come. Just recently, I heard that there was Ebola cases again in some part of West Africa. So it stopped in Nigeria, but it's still going on in some other West Africa. So this is not going away forever. It's just going to be reduced and flattened. So we need to make sure that processes in place to prevent reinfection, hand washing, checking of temperatures, and all of those stuff. And recently, Lagos State or federal government yesterday said use of masks is going to become mandatory for the whole country, which I think is a good way for us to at least keep the infection to yourself when you're coming back after this pandemic. Of course, there must be continuity in the healthcare provision for everyone. And very importantly, for managing this risk, I think communication will be very key for us. What are these risks that we're looking at? So pre-operational, we're going to look at the risk of exposure to COVID-19 at work. So when people are coming back, will they be infected in the workplace? What period will they be resuming after this closure in the workplace? How will they deal with the residual effects of people coming back to work and are angry with themselves, or angry because they've lost a loved one, angry because their source of livelihood is going to disappear? You need to have that risk factor covered that, and also dealing with other workers. Operationally, you have to consider health concerns of everyone coming back to work, because now I'm no longer comfortable coming to work because I can just be infected. High rate of absenteeism will be there. People will not want to come back. You have to beg them to come. And to beg them to come, you must put things in place for them. People will want to work from home now. I'm enjoying working from home, not under permanent lockdown, but people want to work from their homes now. How are you going to protect them? How are you going to make sure they can deliver at home and still be in good health and safety? And then how do you take care of the fears and the worries? Final slide. This risk, we have to control them. Mental risks are there. We have to control them. Organizational changes, new work and employment patterns are going to change. Stress-related diseases, traumas are going to be from left, right, and center. There will be emerging diseases post-COVID. Combined exposure to multiple risks. There will be exposure to chemicals and drugs in our own part of the world where everybody now believes chemical can solve the problem. Whatever the chemical is, they don't care. So people are going to be exposed to drugs and chemicals that they don't even know. There will be issue of complex human-machine interfaces, but control measures we have to be defined at this and circulated to everyone. One of the things I've written here, which is very important, is that organizations must create opportunity for counseling and therapy as people come back to work. They must have constant study and research and training on what workers need to know and what they need to do through communication. There must be policy on hazmat. And of course, you must support those that are going to be working remotely and lonely. And you must have flexibility in the work structure. So it can no longer be normal 8 to 5. Maybe you have to structure it now to make sure it's 8 to 12, go back home and do the remaining job at home. And then we must embrace the new normal, which I call work-life balance, because people are going to just understand now that there's life after work, and then ensure all PPEs and other forms of protection are in place. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was great. I'm so excited and happy for one thing. This session is being recorded. I don't think note taking is going to be enough. I actually need to stay and digest this. This is really great. And it's so great to see like minds thinking the same way. We're all thinking on how we can make workplaces safer during pandemic and post-pandemic, which is great. Thank you so much, Dapo. Now, during the course of your discussion, we still have a lot of questions that have been sent to you. So we are trying to answer some that are repetitive in the question and answer session. For others, we will share during the question session proper. One thing that is being repeated is there a certificate? Now, we would like to inform everyone that we have an infectious disease control certification course that has been provided free of charge. Is accredited by the National Association of Safety Professionals, United States of America. We are giving it to all participants of this course free of charge. So for some of us asking for certificates, I think that helps. Then we'll also definitely share on how we can link this course and actually do these courses online. So we'll move on to our next speaker and our next discussion points. So now we've learned how to manage our risks. We've learned how to manage workplace risks. We've learned how to ensure that our businesses continue. But what are the roles of OSH organizations, pressure groups, and professionals in the workplace? So today we'll have Kolapo discuss this topic for 5 minutes. Kolapo, over to you. Hello. Kalakbo, are you there?
Yeah.
Put
Kalakbo,
unmute
you need to
your
unmute
mic.
your.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So I said I'm here to take a look. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to take a look at the roles of professional associations or bodies, health and safety professional bodies, peer groups, and even professionals in pandemic. First thing first, collaboration. Professional bodies, peer group or pressure groups, professionals need to collaborate with government agencies, with other professional bodies, and with one another at this stage. Nobody is an island of information. We need to assist as one another as much as we can, and we need to actually assist the government instruments and agencies. I want to ask, do we have a national or state pandemic risk assessment done for COVID-19, and what are the control measures? The role of a professional body or pressure group is to ensure that there is guidance, and the task forces, whether presidential or state, which actually act as the emergency operation center, EOC, must understand what we are facing and what we need to do or what they need to do to protect this health and safety of everyone and anyone. Risks must be communicated in a timely manner. People should know as soon, whenever and however the risk has been assessed and controlled. People need to know in a timely manner. Professional associations need to provide thought leadership on workplace health and safety during and post-pandemic. When I say thought leadership, you can actually go on so many social media and you see a lot of information. You don't even know which one is correct. Professional bodies at this stage should stand up to be counted and give a position or make their position known on things such that people see them, the professional associations, the pressure groups, as a go-to channel for information. Fake news cause anxiety. Fake news affect the mental health of not just the professionals, but every individual. So apart from aligning with NCDC and WHO information, professional bodies, pressure groups, professionals that we have, we need to make sure that fake news is eradicated as much as it can within our capacity, and we do what we need to do. Knowledge sharing avenues. A lot of pressure groups, I won't be mentioning names now, have held webinars. They've been trying to make people understand what we are in and how we can get out of this. However, our president, Muhammadu Buhari, said we can go back to work. Are we sure we are ready to resume? Are we sure we are prepared to guard against what we call the second wave of transmission that's community spread? Have we learned any lesson from Spanish flu of 1918? What are we supposed to do? So professionals, I give you back to us. Most of us or some of us have done the ISO courses, we've done the NEBOSH, we've done all this. We've done the NASP, we've done the CSP, we've done whatever certification it is or certificate program. I want to ask, have we planned to manage these risks as professionals? What do you think you will do to control workers' exposure? I saw a question around construction safety. There are some jobs you can't do by lone working. So you can't have just one person doing those jobs alone. What are the controls around social distancing for those kind of jobs? Mr. Eric said clearly, what we are doing now is engineering, administrative, and PPE controls. There's no vaccine, so we can eliminate COVID-19. So what are you doing as a professional to make sure that development and cases of COVID-19 in the workplace is checked? There is an issue of stigmatization. How are we preparing to ensure that people are not stigmatized even if they test positive to COVID-19? Let me submit at this point that COVID-19 is not a disease, it's a pandemic. So if somebody has COVID-19, you don't need to run away from that person. You need to stay away. You don't need to lock that person down. You need to lock him out. You need to keep the tiger retained in the cage. COVID-19 is infectious. You can contract it by moving close to the person, having contact with the fellow person, or even touching the surfaces that the person has touched. Hand sanitizer, hand wash, nose masks, eye goggle, and of course, staying away from social gatherings or large crowd is key at this stage. Finally, infectious disease pandemic policy must be enacted in all workplaces. Infectious disease pandemic policy, as professionals, we must make sure that this exists now in our workplace. And sick people are allowed to work from home, seek medical attention, take COVID-19 test, and not be stigmatized. Thank you so much. Back to Otan.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kolapo. So we'll move on to how organizations can manage organization knowledge during pandemics and post-pandemic. We realize that a lot of us are working remotely. Some of us have been working remotely for 2 months, some way longer. Now, for some particular jobs, their jobs typically are remote work. Now, in the light of pandemics, how can organizations manage organization knowledge and information? So, Sheye, that question is for you.
All right, thank you very much, Itoa, and great knowledge being passed on here already. So I'm just going to pick from what everyone has said, and essentially we realize that in managing post-COVID-19 workplace, knowledge is very, very critical. Even in this season where we can say what we're essentially doing now is some sort of emergency response to the COVID-19 virus, knowledge is very critical. One of the downsides, of course, of what we're going through now, as Kolako mentioned earlier on, is fake news, okay? And you find that there's a lot of misinformation, going on around, and that even heightens, risk of the COVID-19 situation. So what I'm saying in essence is that knowledge is critical for safety professionals and also organizations post-COVID-19 to be able to have a safe workplace. Some of the questions that have come up and some of the contributions that we've had earlier on refer to the fact that there's going to be a need for training. Okay, and the key thing is that these days it will be difficult for you to gather, a whole lot of people together in a room and say that you want to train. So definitely organizations, just like you asked, would have to come up with some other approach in order to be able to train their staff. And particularly because in order for us to have a safe workplace, information awareness training is very, very critical. So I'm going to approach this from two angles. One is the kind of information and the source of information for organizations, and the other would be information or knowledge, and the other would be the approach. How then do we, disseminate knowledge or information post-COVID-19? So the first thing I want to say is, because this is relatively new to everyone, it is important that organizations seek information from other sources. There are quite a number of sources that are available right now where you can find reliable information, okay? Of course, a lot of people get their knowledge of COVID-19 from WhatsApp groups and all of that. It makes a lot of sense that you look at authoritative sources. So the WHO website, of course, is one. The NASP website, naspweb.com, is another. I've also found very useful osha.gov to have very good information. I've seen quite a number of people ask about, oh, how do you handle this? How do you create a program post COVID-19? How do you manage a construction site and all of that? If you go to some of these websites, you'll find very useful resources, okay, to help you jumpstart your effort at, creating the kind of knowledge, okay, that you want to pass across in your organization to your team members and to workers, and even to the management, in order for you to be able to make informed decision, in managing your organization appropriately. So it's important that you know the sources, correct, accurate, and reliable sources of information to be able to manage the workplace effectively post COVID-19. And it's very important that we pay a lot of attention to information and knowledge, because of course, you know that risk essentially by definition is uncertainty, isn't it? Uncertainty that impacts on objectives. And so you find that the less you know, okay, the higher the risk that you're exposed to. Okay, so for you to be able to limit and reduce the risks to the barest minimum, you need sufficient information. Okay, so for as we go back to work, Kolapo, talked about whether the readiness to go back to work or not. Inevitably, at some point, in the future, sooner than later, we'll have to go back to work. And as we go back to work, it's so important that we go back with appropriate knowledge and information. And so on the second part, how then are we going to be able to, transfer and transmit this information? Obviously, in the last 1 month, a lot of us that have not been technology savvy before now, we've had to really, go back and see what we can do to be able to come up to the time, so to say, as far as technology is concerned. So every organization definitely has to leverage on technology, okay, in order to be able to continue to disseminate appropriate knowledge to its team members. And so, and you will be amazed, there are enormous amounts of, innovations and, technology that you can leverage on to actually effectively train, disseminate information, carry out the awareness that is needed without being face-to-face or without gathering large numbers of people and exposing those people to unnecessary risk. Okay, so what I've said in essence is organizations have to leverage on credible sources of knowledge and information, and then organizations have to leverage on technology in order for them to be able to appropriately disseminate information, because information and knowledge is critical at this time. And like we said, initially, NASP has a huge repository of knowledge on health and safety that would make a lot of difference in any organization. Okay, thank you so much, Ita.
Okay, thank you so much, Chair. So we'll move to the question and answer session proper. And I will start with a very, very interesting question. It was posed by a person, someone, Ohoide Emmanuel. I'm so sorry if I might have murdered the name, but I think it's Emmanuel. So he asked, how can safety professionals work from home? Dapo, do you want to take that?
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. Safety professionals work most of the time is beyond the physical policing in the workplace. What most of us have been very used to is physical policing and physical presence. But in this era where we have to use more of knowledge and soft skill to ensure that people work safely, a safety officer or a safety professional can distribute or can get all his duties of ensuring a safe workplace in place. Example is there could be remote monitoring, there could be opportunity for people to have this kind of live virtual meeting for what we basically call toolbox talk or pep talk before work starts. And also you can share very valuable information on how to ensure people work safely right from where I'm sitting right now, while people are at work. While your presence may still be needed at work for 1 or 2, but I think our own job is one of those jobs of in this new era that will be very important, because we can work from anywhere we are and ensure that the workplace is done. But I would like to add to that by saying this is also a function of how much we have done in that workplace before now. Because if the workplace has been fully engaged, if a system has been built in place, if people are aware and they know what they need to do and do it at the right time, this is a good time for you to begin to monitor and supervise what they are doing, rather than being physically present at the work site. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So another question by Emmanuel, he said, one of the panelists says COVID-19 is not a disease, but a pandemic. What is the difference between a disease and a pandemic? So Kolako, do you want to answer that? Hello?
It seems Kolako is muted. Let me just take that.
I've unmuted myself.
Right.
Okay, so when I said is a disease and not is a pandemic and not a disease, is for us to distinguish from stigmatizing people. You know, so if someone has HIV, for instance, and everybody knows is HIV positive, then they tend to, you know, by our culture and tradition, we tend to have a dissent towards that person. But because coronavirus, so there's a difference between pandemic and epidemic. Pandemic means that the disease or the virus can actually move across continents. So it is not by the person's doing, it is not by his willingness, it is not by his actions or inactions that he at times contracts COVID-19. So in the workplace, I was saying, don't let us stigmatize anyone. This pandemic has come to stay and it has to go. Or in the waiting period, so the period between staying and leaving us finally, we need to manage people's emotion. So the government can actually come into your workplace on Monday or Tuesday, conduct a test, and maybe somebody is showing some symptom and the person is taken away. Or better still, you just hear that somebody among your colleagues is now COVID-19 positive. That does not mean that you should stigmatize that person. Pandemic means that it is beyond control. It can move from state to state, country to country, across the continent. Epidemic means that it can actually be contained within that state or location.
Okay, so another person asked, this is good news, Johnny. He asked, how can a safety professional set up standard procedures for operations with regard to COVID-19 at workplaces or any construction sites? How can a safety professional set up standard operating procedures with regards to COVID-19 at companies or any construction sites? Do we have anyone that wants to take that?
Okay, let me go. So I expect at this.
Hello?
Okay, then
can you hear me?
Let me give the floor to Edmond.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think the question is more about what are the thought process that you need to use to set up a standard operating procedure to run your company after the COVID. So I scribbled a few thoughts here, and this is more of a generalized concept, not specific to just construction, but we're looking at just any business. And I take it from a management perspective. I think the first step is you need to first accept as a process, as a policy, that not all employees would work at the workplace. So you need to create a flexible structure that would enable people work from home and people work at the office at the same time. and productivity will be measured based on the two standpoints. That should be the first start point. Then the second one would be measures to ensure safety, whichever platform they decide to work, either from home or from the office. So the safety measures are in line with what we all know, the general things we've talked about for COVID in terms of how to create safety nets, all the safety tools that are required. Then again, you also need to look at how do you, the common areas where people associate in terms of how they commute to work, where they have their meetings, where they have their lunch. So modalities in terms of how the organizations would operate going forward are putting in mind all the safety and social distancing considerations. Then I think another part that is important is part of operationalizing it is creating a platform where employees would willingly volunteer information about their own personal affairs. So right now, there's a whole lot of conversations about confidentiality. Why do you need to know so much about my movements, my whereabouts, things I've done? This time around, there should be a process that enables employee or encourages employees to volunteer this information, because clearly somebody mentioned here that not having sufficient information is risk on its own. So creating an operational methodology for an organization, it means that you should be able to understand, know, be aware of where your employees go to, where they associate, such that they don't become vectors that could also cripple your organization when they come back to work. Then another point that is also important is to create a very flexible communication and a rapid and frequent communication platform where you can reach the employees can reach you, and there should be a platform where you can communicate effectively with the employees. That should go into the methodology. One other area that is also important in creating that methodology is
Oh, thank you so much. Hello?
That the organization brings out what are the successes. Okay, the successes from this particular experience, and note them down, because the successes now introduced into the best practice plan of the organization. I will be introducing to their PA going forward. And the last part is that organization needs to create a platform to fortify remote working in their policies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edmund. Really great. Okay, so we have another question. What resources can the employers, this is from Temitayo Daramola, what resources can the employers provide the employees to facilitate the adoption of the new virtual remote system? What resources can the employers provide the employees to facilitate the adoption of a new virtual remote system?
Okay, you want to take that, Mita?
Yes, please.
Of course, looking at it from the safety standpoint and even from general workplace standpoint, it is of course the responsibility of employers to ensure that any resource that may be required, okay, by employees will be provided by the employer. So, for instance, if you're expected to work from home and you're expected to use data or you're expected to use laptops, it is the responsibility of the employer to find a way to provide or to compensate you in one way or the other if you're going to be using yours to get all of that done, definitely. And if in some instances also this work has to be done probably even in the office, and there's going to be some change in work procedures and all of that, it is the responsibility of the employer. So it would depend on the specifics, okay, of your own situation. So for some, the employer may need to provide phones, for some it may be laptops, for some it may be data. So one cannot really say specifically that it will be this or that. If also it comes to, you know, PPEs and so on and so forth, just digressing a bit now, then it is the responsibility of the employer to provide all of that once you are in the workplace. And if also there is a need, because just to mention this, there's some people have muted, you know, the possibility that when, and I think that also mentioned that when returning to work, some employers may want to know your COVID-19 status. Okay, so even if that is the case, you know, to say, oh, before people come in, I want to test everyone to be sure that, you know, we're safe and all of that, it will be the responsibility of the employer to carry out tests and so on and so forth. So an employer cannot ask you, oh, go and do COVID-19 test and then come and give me your results or something like that. It is the responsibility of the employer, you know, to actually do all of that to ensure that the workplace is safe. So those are my thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Now, at this junction, we have a whole lot of questions which we will not be able to take because we are so almost out of time. At this junction, we would like Eric to run through the vote of thanks and we'll call it a wrap and look forward to the next webinar. Eric, over to you.
All right. Well, I, for one, really appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning and listen to these other professionals on their expertise as it relates to COVID-19. You know, I will say that this is a fluid situation and we are constantly learning new things and evolving with new information. So we have to stay up to the minute as safety professionals. I hope that you guys who are listening online manage to get some good information out of this and reach out to IASP West Africa for additional resources and information on this and other safety related needs. Thank you to the co-speakers. I would say them by name, but I know I would probably butcher them, so I apologize. But do stay involved. We just kicked off the West Africa franchisee last fall, and we're looking to grow into this area. I mean, safety is not just in the United States, it's not in Africa, it's worldwide. And this COVID-19 situation has certainly made us aware that we are together as one against this unseen enemy. So let's continue to fight the good fight and stay in touch with us. We have developed some new good specialist courses on infectious control that you can touch base with your representatives in the West Africa district on. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you for the effort of putting this together, and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you very much, Eric. At this junction, we'd like to let everybody know, we know challenges with accessing this webinar on Zoom and also some challenges or technical issues that must have occurred at YouTube. We'll also be sharing this recording with everyone. So please know that you can also still have this recording, especially for some that ask questions on how they can access all the information on this webinar. So you also get the recording. A link will also be shared on all our social media pages. Please follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn, IASPWA West Africa. We're also going to share a link on how you can access the free infectious disease control course offered by the National Association of Safety Professionals. And at this junction, we'll like Sheye to close the meeting. Hello, Sheye.
Oh, was that going to be with a closing prayer or something?
No, just close the meeting.
Yeah, because I was wondering, after Eric had given the vote of thanks, I wonder what I'm going to say again. Okay,
thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, so just a minute. Okay, so thank you, everyone. We really apologize about the YouTube glitch. Of course, you can rest assured that everyone that registered, of course, also all the people that attended, obviously, are going to get the recording of this session. We're also going to curate the questions that have been asked, and in some further communication, we would attempt to answer those questions and send to everyone. We really appreciate your turning up for this event, and we hope to engage more often after now. And hope we'll soon get out of this lockdown and be able to go about our business. Thank you so much, especially to our panelists and to all of the attendees. Thank you so much. God bless and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Please stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye.